Oh, there's a lot going on these last 24, 48 hours when it comes to the Golden State Warriors, more specifically the topic of the summer, the item that has held everything up, cost me thousands of dollars. And the guest on the show today, Bruce Bernstein, might have a slight idea what I'm talking about in terms of player actions, team actions, hitting you in your pocketbook. Bruce Bernstein was an executive, a producer for decades, right? Is that accurate at ESPN?
Yep, over 30 years.
Damn, that's a long time. And he's still active. He hosts a show here on the BLEAV network called 48 Minutes covering the NBA and then some. We're talking Kuminga, we're talking Warriors, we're talking NBA. We're going to talk about, folks, you the consumer, you the audience, watching, viewing, listening to NBA action. We're going to talk about what you're going to expect this coming season because times have changed and the NBA is going to be on 7 nights a week. The question is, where are you going to catch it? How is it going to look? How's the broadcasting? And maybe most importantly, and that's an opinion clearly, what's going to happen with Inside the NBA? One of the greatest studio shows I've ever experienced in my life. It's phenomenal content. Bruce Bernstein's joining us. Let's get into it. Bruce, are you ready, sir?
Let's go, baby.
It's the Golden Daze.
They always find something to nitpick, and that's because there's expectations for us to win. Leave me alone this summer.
Let's go. In a minute, I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up.
Annie, the house, Palmetto Money, welcome to the Golden Daze. You can follow Bruce Bernstein there. I got a little visual for you. Nowhere near the production quality that Bruce you were used to at ESPN, but we'll make do with what we have on social media at Pure Hoops Bruce. You also host a program on the BLEAV network. It's called 48 Minutes, representing the length of an NBA game, which is different than some other leagues, right? International play, they go 40 minutes. So 48 is, and same with the WNBA. So when I hear 48 minutes, my mind is immediately going to NBA action. Bruce, you were a longtime executive at ESPN. My dear friend Amina Hussein, 25 years ago, when I first started in this industry as a lowly intern at KNBR Radio, as a college student, Amina was I think was literally the first person I met. She was always so sweet to me. And I remember when she moved on from KNBR, it was a depressing moment because we lost one of the good people, but she went to your network, to ESPN. She's now at Amazon killing it. She's one of the smart ones who realized going behind the scenes is far more of a high acumen move, if you will. She's killing it at Amazon. That's our mutual connection. She endorses you, Bruce. Great to see you, sir. And before we get into all the coverage, tell us about yourself briefly in case people are unfamiliar with your body of work and who you are as a person. Nice to meet you. It's our first time meeting and great to be on the program, sir. Nice to have you.
Thank you, Cyrus. It's a pleasure to meet you as well. Yeah, I started at ESPN in February of 1982. I was there for the better part of 36 years. I left at the end of 2017. I was coordinating producer for NBA studio programming. Once we got the contract, I oversaw SportsCenter at the NBA Finals from 1994 to 2015. So over 20 years every year overseeing our coverage. Coordinating producer for NBA Tonight, NBA Coast to Coast, a lot of SportsCenter, a lot of ESPN News, you name it. I did a little of everything. And even now in my post-ESPN years, ESPN Radio will sometimes ask me to produce a radio game here and there. So it's like somehow or another, I just can't get it out of my system, Cyrus.
Well, the good ones keep getting asked back, right? So I think that's a good sign that they're still reaching out to you. When you say that, are you referring to like remote engineering broadcasts, or are you producing actual talk shows? Like, what are they asking you to fill in for?
No, when they have like a lot of extra games that they have to produce, they kind of need to pull some people in from the bullpen, so to speak. So
Yes,
I will work with, say, Mark Kestacher, PJ Carlissimo, and the engineer on site. So I'll be feeding them their cards, tracking stuff, whatever, doing everything except talking on the air. And I absolutely love it. I mean, when you sit courtside at an NBA game and you get to see things, 10, 15 feet away from you, you get a whole new appreciation for what's going on that you can't get even from the best TV broadcast.
Absolutely right. And I guess it depends on the arena, right? Because the Warriors radio crew, for example, they're perched up in the second deck. Same with their TV, actually. I think they swapped those seats out to make some extra money, which highlights, again, just the focus of the Golden State Warriors and Joe Lacob. It's the ducats. He cares a lot about every dollar being spent, and that matters for these Jonathan Kuminga negotiations. Nonetheless, Bruce, it's a pleasure to have you, and I'm gonna ask you questions about your background, and I think a lot of the questions that I'm gonna raise and the topics that we cover will pertain to your background very specifically, because in a little bit we're gonna talk about just media consumption and how people can actually watch NBA action. I'd love to get your thoughts on Adam Silver's recent attribution pertaining to the highlights are available for all the laymen out there, the common folk who can't afford to pay for the broadcast. I thought that was a little head shrug of a move. Yeah, I'm with you on this. We'll get into that and so much more. But this Jonathan Kuminga story is right at the forefront of everything being talked about when it comes to Dub Nation, where Warriors broadcast. They call me crazy is having issues with the stream. I hope everyone else can catch is okay. A couple other people in the chat have already commented. I hope you can see it okay. They call me crazy. From my end, we look okay. Anyways, this Jonathan Kuminga story yesterday with Sophia Jones, color analyst for your Golden State Valkyries. We touched on it a little bit, but didn't go too much into detail. This happened so last minute. Shams Charania and Anthony Slater published this piece Monday morning. No heads up, and that's how it goes usually. And it caught, I think, a lot of people like me off guard. When you wake up on a Monday morning with a story that has multiple facets of fresh information pertaining to this hot button topic here in the Bay Area, a polarizing topic for Dub Nation. Wow, is that going to suddenly take over everything? And before we get into it, Bruce, and I'd love to get your thoughts clearly as someone who's covered this game for 30 plus years, maybe even more than that. I mean, you didn't tell us about what you were doing before ESPN, but I want to hear from one of your former colleagues. I want to play this clip to start the show, because yesterday on NBA Today, Ramona Shelburne and Tim McMahon were part of a panel. They weren't the only ones talking about it, but these are the two that are going to be talking in this clip. And they provided some insights adding on to the story that Slater wrote. And I want to play this clip first before we get into it, because there were a few nuggets of fascinating information in that story that were breaking news. Some of these pieces of information were buried way deep in the story. That's how it goes sometimes. Anyways, let's start with Ramona Shelburne and Tim McMahon, and then we'll provide our feedback to this. But this was their commentary on the breaking news of Slater and Shams. I think Shams actually was the primary lead journalist on this story. But let's hear from these two individuals, especially Ramona Shelburne. She's been on this show. Everything I've ever read and heard from her and seen pertaining to the Warriors aligns exactly with what I've been hearing and reporting on these programs over the years. And so when she talks, I listen. The Tim McMahon part of this, I feel like he's just adding mostly conjecture and opinion. Again, we'll break this down in a second. But here is that segment from NBA Today, a show, at least a variation of it, they used to produce, Bruce. And let's hear these two individuals talk about Jonathan Kuminga.
How have the Warriors handled this Kuminga situation, in your opinion?
Awkwardly. I mean, how have they handled Kuminga's entire career? Steve Kerr doesn't want Kuminga. Kuminga doesn't want to play for the Warriors, in part because he knows the coach doesn't want him. Listen, Shams is talking about there's going to be a divorce eventually. Let's stay together for the kids. I've lived that. I lived with my ex-wife for a year after we agreed to divorce for the kids. Let me tell you, it was not fun. There are going to be chemistry issues.
Yeah.
Put them mildly. This is going to be a disaster if they bring back Kuminga. Then, there's SGA. He might as well be HTE, human trade exception. And he's going to be, you think he's going to want to pass the ball? You think he's going to want to play team ball? He's going to want the ball. He's going to want minutes. Steve Kerr doesn't think he fits. I wonder what they think they can get that's better than Malik Monk and a first-round pick.
Tim, were you offered $48 million to stay in that marriage next year? I mean,
no, but it was a financial decision.
Listen to me. There was some big news in this report that Shams and Anthony Slater put out.
Yeah.
Is that the Warriors had increased their offer to 3 years and 77. It's basically $25 million.
But the player option is what he objects to.
Still, in that third
Or
year,
the
that's
team option,
$48 million guaranteed compared to 8. So when we've been talking about this all summer long, it's been $8 million qualifying offer, or basically $24 million a year. So that's a lot less. Okay, 24 doubled. That's $48 million in guaranteed money that he is willing to leave on the table. Forget about the third year. I know that's a big deal, but that's the same average annual value that Josh Giddey just got in Chicago. I understand that kind of stinks, but $48 million in guaranteed money is not something to walk away from when you're a young player. And I understand how awkward it is.
Absolutely miserable.
Right, and
which he clearly is.
Yeah.
Which he and I look, I know the locker room fits are awkward, etc. But that's why Steve Kerr gets paid a lot of money too, and that's why the veterans on this team get paid a lot of money. And I think the Warriors' stance has always been they don't want to lose him for nothing. Understandably, but they did have chances over the years. Alex Caruso was a guy they could have gone and got. Obviously, that would have helped them in the last couple of years. But to me, the fact that the Warriors have increased their offer, they've given him another year of guaranteed money. That's big.
How have the
And just to add to that, Anthony Slater was on ESPN today. I'm not going to bother playing that clip, but what he reported, which adds some important context to this conversation, is that according to Slater, courtesy of Kuminga's agent Aaron Turner, if the Warriors change that third year from a team option to a player option, meaning Jonathan Kuminga wants to have control over that third season, it's a done deal. And all I'm getting from this, Bruce, is we're damn close. I think this is going to be finalized in the next 48 to 72 hours. The Warriors clearly don't want to have Kuminga sign that qualifying offer. But give us your take, sir, on this whole scenario, or at a minimum, starting with this specific topic at hand.
Well, one of the things I read in that story was that, a number of their contracts for their big guys are going to be expiring after 2 more seasons. So it kind of lines up with the fact that they only want to keep him around for a guaranteed 2 seasons, and they don't want to give him the power to remain on the team for a third season. This I kind of don't understand because, look, the Warriors are an aging team. I mean,
yes,
Steph's going to be 38, Draymond's 36, Jimmy's 36. I mean, everybody that matters is over 30. And Kuminga's like 22, 23 years old. I mean, they are not really doing the greatest job of developing young players that are going to kind of come up and transition them into the future. So it seems to me that with a guy like Kuminga, last 2 years, he's averaged like 15, 16 points, playing about 24 to 26 minutes a game. That's really pretty good production. Now, I can sort of understand where Steve Kerr is coming from because he's got this Hall of Fame core that brought him 4 championships, and he doesn't really necessarily feel like JK messes with those guys. So he's kind of in a tough spot too, because he's got Draymond and Steph, Jimmy, whatever. And I think, he sees those 3 collectively as a more important element than the need to integrate JK into that mix.
And it's complicated, and we talked about this yesterday, and I do believe that I believe this very convincingly on my part, at least. I don't know, everyone has the right to their own opinion, clearly, but I don't think any of what Steve Kerr is doing is malicious. Like, I don't think he's being punitive in the way he's treated Kuminga. His focus is just winning, and winning with this core. But I also do think anyone has every right to criticize the decisions by Kerr in terms of the minutes for the youngsters, for the lack of commitment in terms of developing the youngsters. I just don't think he's handled it well, but I also don't think it's been intentional, right? Which some people do believe. And Kuminga himself came out and said, there's no hard feelings there. Like this idea, and this is where I strongly disagree with the picture Tim McMahon was trying to paint there, that Kuminga hates being there. That he doesn't hate it. That's a strong word. He just doesn't like the fact that he was the number 1 player in high school. He opts out of high school a year early, and that's why he goes to G League Ignite. He was 17 when he played in the G League. That's how young he was going there. And, he's 18th in his draft class in minutes per game. And that's a number that I just can't I have a hard time swallowing that figure specifically. Now, I want to add one more piece to this in terms of multimedia, because Shelburne said one last thing here. I want to play real fast. This is a much shorter clip. But I also agree with this sentiment too. And then we'll be done playing the clips for today's show. But this was Shelburne adding one last piece of information pertaining to just how this is going to resolve. Here's Shelburne.
I think there's something about getting in the room. And I know the Warriors had been very frustrated throughout the process that they had not talked to Jonathan Kuminga directly. All the communication was going through his agent, whereas other teams like the Kings and the Suns had talked to Jonathan Kuminga personally. And so that was the fact that they got in a room together, that the owner and the general manager, Mike Dunleavy Jr., got in a room and were able to talk to him face to face, I think does help move this thing forward and towards some kind of resolution. Because David, I'm the opposite. I think he is on the roster when they start the year. I also think there is something about getting in the room.
Sorry about that. There we go. And so that wraps up the clips there. And I agree with Ramona that getting in the room finally, right? Because the story reported that came out yesterday that that Lacob has not been directly involved himself in these negotiations. This has been primarily Mike Dunleavy Jr. and his team with the Warriors having these negotiations with Aaron Turner and Jonathan Kuminga. Tim Kawakami, a local media member here, reporting that the Warriors front office they're not fans of Aaron Turner, right? And I could understand why, because Aaron Turner's the guy who leaked out a couple years ago that Kuminga wasn't happy about not getting benched for the second half of a Nuggets game that the team ultimately lost. They blew a 20-point lead, and just his usage generally, he wasn't sad. And okay, I hope we're okay. Point is, they're now in a room talking. Lacob's now getting himself involved. I still can't get over the piece of the story where Lacob asked Jonathan Kuminga, "Do you want to be here?" And Kuminga, and I thought this was a brilliant response, replies with, "Do you want me here?" And I really wish we got the follow-up to that. Shams kind of stopped the reporting there. It's like that's where the movie stops. What happens next? What was the answer to that? But nonetheless, I do think this gets resolved soon, Bruce, and we can happily move forward in regards to the rest of the Warriors roster, because only 9 guys are under contract right now. That is absolutely insane. Have you ever seen anything like this? And anything you want to add to this topic as we slowly begin to shift gears?
Yeah, well, I think the answer to both of those questions, do you want me here or do you want to be here? I think the answer is, I'm just not into you, okay? They just feel like each side really isn't into the other. I think there's been bad blood. And here's the thing. The longer this thing drags out, the more potential there is for this thing to turn into like a low boil chemistry issue for this team. I mean, because look, usually players will side with players. I get that, okay? But you've got Steph, you've got Jimmy, you've got Draymond, all right? They might have 2 more years of productive play left, and they still fancy themselves as contenders. But here's this kid, JK, and I'm putting kid in quotation marks. He's not a kid, but he's a younger dude, okay? But his situation is preventing them from rounding out the team, as you said. Al Horford, and here's a good example. Al Horford, they want the guy to move 3,000 miles away, all right, and sign with them. He's going to sign with them once Kuminga gets squared away, right? Same deal with DeAnthony Melton, but they can't do it. They're frozen because of that hard cap. So what's Al Horford going to think about this whole situation when he eventually comes, if Kuminga's still there? He's going to be feeling like, you know what? I was trying to figure out where my kids were going to go to school, and all of this baloney with you, my personal life is messed up. I had it pretty good in Boston. I wanted to come join you guys. And, thank you very much, JK, for handing me this shit sandwich. Can I say that? Okay.
You can, yes. You can definitely say that.
Yeah. And I think, and what about Draymond and his mercurial nature? I remember a couple of years ago, he let Jordan Poole have one right in the face in practice because he didn't like his act. Are we going to see something like that happen again with JK? Because Draymond's like, WTF, dude,
Bruce,
why are you holding us up?
Well, Bruce, it's funny. I don't know if it's funny, but we actually broke the story here on this program, and I don't mind saying it again. Going back to the Draymond Jordan Poole thing, for people that don't know, because the report that's out there, that's in print at least, is that Jordan Poole made like a backpack insult to Draymond Green, right? Because the old meme that's out there with Draymond Green and his shooting style is he looks like he's wearing a backpack when he's putting up 3-point shots. And so the rumor, the speculation is that Poole made a comment like that to Draymond Green and has set him off. But what people don't know, and again, we've reported this exclusively here, and I don't know if you're aware of this, Bruce, is that Draymond Green just a day before found out he lost custody of his son. And again, I'm not justifying any of this. Like, I'm not sitting here saying getting really horrible news is a green light for you to sock someone next to you. But what I'm saying here is for Warriors fans especially, who follow this team religiously, I'm guessing you folks remember Dre Jr., Draymond's son, used to always be around. He would actually be sitting next to Draymond Green at press conferences. Adorable little kid, man. This little boy had charm. He had a personality. And then poof, we haven't seen him in 2+ years. There's a reason for that. The day before Jordan Poole got cold cocked, Draymond found this horrible news out, and he just was not in a good headspace. And again, maybe the coaching staff should have given him a day off. Maybe Jordan Poole could have been a little more aware of that when talking shit. Maybe Draymond Green should have been more mature about it and not taking a swing. But that context, I think, does matter in the big picture, because as I'm sure you know, Bruce, behind the scenes, violence is a very common thing when it comes to professional athletes, especially on the male side, right? I mean, Steve Kerr, Draymond's coach, punched Michael Jordan in the face. Jordan punched him right back, but it wasn't recorded. It wasn't on film, right? So everyone moved on. It's an interesting anecdote that we can joke about now, but everyone moved on. In the Draymond situation, they leaked the video of it. It looked awful. And we know the rest of the story, but I digress. You also mentioned Draymond, and that leads to an important piece of this story, because there were so many little nuggets of fascinating information that I want to touch on that we didn't get a chance to yesterday. One of those pieces of information were who else is lined up for the Warriors, meaning who else has these handshake deals that could be signed by the Warriors once Jonathan Kuminga is on board. And Slater and Shams mentioned names. They were very specific. You brought up Al Horford, right? He's in line to get the taxpayer mid-level exception, but they can't offer that until the Kuminga thing is resolved. D'Anthony Melton is all but a lock. He's already repping the Warriors on his social media channels. So I think that's the safest bet of all these players that's expected to sign. But two names in particular that have just been mostly speculated about until this story were Seth Curry and GP2. Right, like Seth Curry has been rumored to be maybe coming back, Stephen Curry's brother, and this report indicated that he's one of the guys that's likely going to be coming on board. And then GP2 is another mystery, right? Like, we have no idea if the Warriors are bringing him back. This report indicates he will be coming back, but this is where the math of it is really important, and this is why how much Kuminga makes this upcoming season is very pertinent. Because if Kuminga is paid $21.7 million this upcoming season, the Warriors have the flexibility to go ahead and sign all those other free agents. And then I think Will Richard will round out the roster. However, if Kuminga gets a penny above $21.7 million, there will not be enough cap space to sign all those veterans. Someone's going to have to get lopped off, if you will. And my guess is it would be GP2, and this is why GP2 has not been given any commitments by the Warriors. We've reported on this show that what the Warriors have told him repeatedly is, we can't give you an answer until the Kuminga thing's resolved, and it's for this exact reason. GP2 and Seth Curry are both eligible for $3.6 million in a veteran minimum salary this coming season, and they just can't fit both of them. I would imagine GP2 would be the odd man out. Maybe it's Seth, but then you're upsetting Stephen Curry, his brother. So I can't imagine that's going to happen. But what are your thoughts on the fact that Kuminga and his upcoming salary is going to dictate whether or not basically Seth Curry and or GP2 make the team? Your thoughts?
Well, the third alternative is let him sign that $8 million qualifying offer, and now you've got all the money in the world to sign those other guys. However, you're probably going to lose him for nothing, at the end of the season. And so are you willing to risk losing him for nothing in order to round out your team for this year? Or maybe, trade him before the deadline, whatever, if you can. It's a tough call. I mean, look, Kuminga, this is the only leverage the guy really has, right? Is to say, okay, I'll sign that. I'll bet on myself, so to speak. Okay. So maybe the Warriors should just say, well, I'm not really into you. You're not really into me. Go ahead and do that, and go ahead, bet on yourself and hope that you don't go up for a rebound and land on somebody's ankle.
Well, the downside to that, Bruce, is if the Warriors decide that that's the scenario where they basically dare Kuminga, and this is the standoff, right? Is the Warriors and Kuminga, they're having this staring contest. Whoever blinks first, Slater's, multiple people in the media covering the Warriors have said so directly that that's the case here. It's a game of chicken. If Kuminga signs that qualifying offer, though, Bruce, and this is the huge downside for the Warriors, that's a no trade clause would accompany that qualifying offer. So Kuminga would essentially be a poison pill on your roster, controlling where he goes if the Warriors try to trade him. B, the trade itself would be for a $7.9 million contract. And as you know, in the NBA, you got to match within 75%. So the best you can get for Kuminga is someone making that amount of money. And I don't know if you can get a fair deal in terms of what you get back. And C, you lose him for nothing in a year, like for nothing. So and this is why I've been bringing up in terms of leverage on each side. The Warriors clearly have money as leverage, right? In terms of how much they can offer Kuminga. And look, we're talking tens of millions of dollars. This is not chump change. This is real money we're talking about. But from Kuminga's side, what he's aware of is if I hold out at a certain point, the Warriors are going to have to start filling roster spaces. And then it turns into a massive mess at that point, because then the Warriors can't give Hal Horford that taxpayer mid-level exception. I guess what I'm trying to say is Kuminga, by holding out, would directly prevent the Warriors from adding Horford. So that in itself is leverage. That the fact that Kuminga, again, could leave for nothing, could be a poison pill, the no trade clause. Kuminga has more leverage than a lot of us, at least a lot of folks in the media are aware of. But you're also right, too. Kuminga's playing with fire in that he's getting $7.9 million instead of 20-something million. You're sacrificing a lot of money. There's a risk of injury. There's just a lot of risk on Kuminga's part, right? Anything you want to add to that?
Well, all right. So then look, maybe Golden State needs to just say, look, we'll give you that player option for the third year. Okay. You know, he could still be traded at some point.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
You know, so give it to him and worry about it next year. Or
Exactly.
the year after. And who knows, the guy might come out and just like kill it this year and overachieve.
Absolutely right. And I lied when I said I wasn't going to play any more media clips. There's one more I'm going to play. Forgive me to the audience. I did completely mislead you there. But Slater was on ESPN again this morning, and I completely forgot about this. And I want to play this clip where he basically is all but confirming, Bruce, what you said, that if the Warriors flip that team option in year 3 to a player option, Kuminga's going to sign it, and he's going to play ball. Slater was very specific in terms of Kuminga's mindset in these negotiations. Let's hear from Slater.
In with you, how is Anthony Slater? And Slater, I'm curious, at this point, just a couple of weeks away from training camp, what's the holdup now?
Yeah, you know, I actually talked to Aaron Turner, Jonathan Kuminga's agent, this morning, and the messaging they're adopting this week is turn the TO to a PO and it's done. And that messaging is generally saying if it's a team option on that 3-year deal you mentioned, 74-ish million, if that's suddenly a player option, not only will Jonathan Kuminga sign it, they're saying, but he will be completely bought in on the mission that they're asking of him, which is, you know, using Turner's messaging, that is to get Steph Curry and Draymond Green a 5th ring, Jimmy Butler his 1st ring, and that's an understanding of him that it's a show of goodwill if they send it to a player option for what they're calling, you know, years of confusion over his role and a willingness to suppress some of his personal ambitions, which are obviously very much a part of you know, the holdup here. Accept what's probably going to be a bench role, what's probably going to be fluctuating minutes, and accepting what will very likely be, you know, a tradable contract. As they've mentioned, they've compared the deal to, you know, a lower level version of the Jalen Green deal that Houston signed, which, you know, Jalen Green, I think, is making about $33 million next year. Then it's a $36 million player option, saying he got paid by Houston to essentially also, you know he might be traded. He was traded for Kevin Durant, and they just believe that if Kuminga is going to sign this and come in and buy in, you know, as they want, he wants that to be a player option and not a team option. That's the holdup right now.
Turn a TO into a PO is very catchy, and it also makes a lot of sense here for Jonathan Kuminga. Slater, one thing you and I have been talking about is what impact this could have on the team, on the locker room, on a group that is trying to pursue yet another championship in the Steph Curry era. And Draymond Green, he weighed in on all of this on social media yesterday. He was pretty optimistic. He said negotiations are rarely easy, which is true, but they usually get done in the end. So that's what Draymond's saying. Where do things actually stand internally with the team waiting to see how this plays out?
Yeah, I would describe the veterans as calm and confident calm because they know the roster that's coming after the Kuminga domino, which we've talked about. Large expectation is Al Horford will be their starting center. That's important to them. And confident because Jimmy Butler apparently is, worked out really well this summer. Steph Curry's healthy. They think they can be good this season. Their curiosity, as I mentioned to you last week, is on the buy-in of Jonathan Kuminga. And right now, Kuminga's side is essentially saying, if you care about, the now, if the major priority is the Steph Curry this season, next season window to try to win a title, give Jonathan Kuminga control of his 2027-28 season. Because right now what the Warriors are offering, and they've been steadfast, no player option. They want the team option in the third season. They're saying if you give Kuminga the player option, he's all bought in for this season, just like they want.
And here's my prediction, Bruce. My prediction is there will not be any options. My prediction is the final offer that Kuminga will sign is going to be a 3-year deal for approximately $75 million. No options either way, because again, the Warriors want the team option for flexibility for 2027. And we'll talk about that in just a second, because you mentioned how asinine of a concept that is. I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's insane if that's true, right? Sam Amick of The Athletic is reporting that. And so many reports are more speculation than actual journalism that we see in the offseason. But Bruce, let's say for the sake of argument that everything's resolved. Let's say best case scenario, Kuminga gets that 3 or 75. And again, my guess is there will be no options, because what Lacob has said is he doesn't want to give Kuminga a player option, because then that gives him the freedom after year 2. Let's say Kuminga's killing it. Let's say Kuminga turns into like a max level player. He doesn't want to see after year 2 Kuminga just say peace, right? So my guess is it's going to be a 3-year deal, guaranteed, no options whatsoever. That's my prediction. I could be wrong with that. But Bruce, let's say for the sake of argument, best case scenario, Kuminga comes back and he's on board, right? He's happy. He's bought into Kerr's agenda of making everything revolve around Steph, right? And you add Al Horford as your starting center. He stays healthy despite being 39. You add Seth Curry. You add DeAnthony Melton. And even GP2. A side note, I'm not a huge fan if that ends up happening, largely because I feel like Steve Kerr just plays him way more than he should. With all that said, I love that roster. I think that is a contender for this upcoming season. You cover the NBA as a whole, so would love your thoughts on that.
It's an aging roster, okay? And I think it's important that you have somebody with Kuminga's skills and youth, because you've got to really start now managing minutes with some of these older guys. Because my biggest concern about the Warriors is not necessarily their talent, it's injuries. I mean, when you get into your late 30s, those injuries, they seem to happen more frequently. And when you have a guy like Kuminga, maybe he does come off the bench as a 6th man. But you know what? There's a lot of 6 men that play starter minutes, because they may not start the game, but they're going to be playing key moments down the stretch. Yep. And for a guy like Kuminga, look, they lost Kevon Looney, right? He was really their best rebounder. No one's even talking about that. That's going to be a loss, okay? Kuminga can grab some boards. He'll help you. At least he can get off the floor, get up in the air, So they need younger guys. I mean, look, Trace Jackson Davis is nice. Podziemski's nice. They do have some nice young guys, but they don't have enough when their big 3 averages like 37 years old. So, yes, I mean, I'd say the best case scenario is bring JK back, tell him, you know what, you may not be starting, but you're going to probably be playing just as many minutes as the starters, So, understand it. That's our pledge to you. And we just want everything you have.
Yeah. And a huge reason for my optimism with the Warriors this year, this upcoming season, if everything plays out. Because you mentioned the aging factor, and that's a very real variable that needs to be taken into consideration here. Because again, Steph turns 38, Jimmy Butler just turned 36, Draymond Green's going to turn 36, and that's your core. And then Al Horford, if he's your starting center, 39. But then it starts looking a little better, right? Because Buddy Hield is in his early 30s, and I think he's going to get some minutes this season. Quentin Post, we have no idea what he's going to turn into. If we get the best version of Quentin Post, that's fantastic news. Now you have a stretch big on top of backing up Al Horford, so you're constantly just having space and a little size to go with it. Kuminga, who knows what we're going to see this year from him? Moses Moody, who knows what we're going to see from him this year? Brandon Podziemski, who knows what we're going to see from him this year? All 3 of those in terms of growth, right? You also add Guy Santos, a totally marginal player by most standards. I love the kid. I think he's going to surprise some people this year. My point is there is youth. It's just, you're right. The big hitters, your 3, 4, 5 in the metaphorical lineup we're talking about here, they all are averaging 37 years of age. But I do love the leadoff hitter. I do love your 6 through 9. And this reminds me a lot of the Spurs in 2014, where you had the aging Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, but Kawhi was emerging. And I'm not saying Kuminga is going to be your finals MVP this year, but what I'm trying to say is I do see a little similarity here with that version of a championship team. Am I being too fantastical here, Bruce?
No, because here's the thing. I mean, I have the utmost respect for Steve Kerr. I think Steve Kerr understands his players as well as any coach can understand their players. So he's going to know who needs to get a night off. He's going to need to know who's going to just show up at practice one day and just watch film and not be running up and down the court. He knows that stuff because he's worn all those hats. He was a player. He was an executive. He was a broadcaster. He's a coach. He's a Hall of Fame coach. Okay, he's going to Springfield one day. Not even a question in my mind. So I have faith in his leadership and his understanding of what he has. So if you just give him the ingredients, he'll make you a tasty meal.
I love your faith in Cursor. Another very interesting part of that story published by Shams and Slater was they took a trip down memory lane to the 2021 draft. And this has never been reported. And this was a fascinating nugget of information where they reported that some coaches, I think that's how they phrased it, they did not name names, of course, because we never do see names with juicy pieces of information like this. But the story reported that some coaches wanted Franz Wagner to be drafted instead of Jonathan Kuminga. That's the first time I've ever seen that written anywhere. And it was eye-opening to me because the first question in my mind is, who are the coaches, right? Like, I think that's pretty important in this. We don't know what Bob Myers and or Mike Dunleavy Jr. were thinking at the time. Myers repeatedly, when you watch interviews with him, he gets defensive if you question the Kuminga pick. He does nothing but sing praise for Kuminga, and routinely when asked about that pick, his response, what I always see is, well, who would you have taken instead? That's what I always see him reply with. So I don't think Myers had a different player in mind. I could be wrong on that, and I'd love to get Bob on the show someday to get a lot of information from him. My point is, whoever these coaches are, I wanted to remind people a little bit about how Jonathan Kuminga got drafted by the Golden State Warriors, because this is very important and this is public. But it's just unfortunately no one ever talks about it, despite it being objective truth. When Jonathan Kuminga fell to the 6th pick, Draymond Green called Joe Lacob himself and said, take this kid. Take Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga was a Draymond Green pick. I mean, not literally, but Green's just advocated hard for this guy. And in case you're wondering why, like, what did Draymond Green know? How did Draymond Green know about this high school kid who played 1 year at G League Ignite? It's because Kuminga's teammate that 1 year at G League Ignite was Jared Jack. Jared Jack, in case you folks forgot, played a pivotal role in Stephen Curry's coming out year, if you will. The first year that the Warriors made the playoffs, they upset the Nuggets in the first round of the playoffs. Jared Jack was a huge part of that team. Mark Jackson loved him. I still don't understand fully why they lost him after that season. But fast forward to 2020, 2021, and Jared Jack, it's the final year of his playing career, and he's teammates with Kuminga. Jared Jack has maintained a relationship with numerous former Warriors teammates of his, Draymond Green included, and he told Draymond, you guys would be fools if you passed up on this kid. And Kristen Peak was on the show a couple weeks ago talking, and her entire career is evaluating high schoolers and college players and how they're going to evolve into NBA players. And she repeatedly has said Kuminga was the best player coming out of college. She just wants Kuminga to be set free in terms of just an opportunity, right? Because again, 18th in his draft class in minutes per game, that's pretty egregious, at least in my book. But that's the genesis of why Kuminga was drafted. And yes, he's a Joe Lacob guy, absolutely. But Joe Lacob also clearly listens to Draymond Green very carefully. Like Lacob strongly respects Draymond Green's opinion, and that's how Kuminga got drafted in the first place. Bruce, any thoughts on that? I don't know if you do, but
Well,
third.
hindsight is always 2020. I mean, look, I think about the 2018 NBA draft. All right, number 1 overall pick DeAndre Ayton, number 2 overall pick Marvin Bagley, number 3 overall pick Luka Doncic. Okay, maybe if they had a do-over, Luka Doncic might have gone higher than 3. I mean, look. As for Franz Wagner, I'm a big fan of Franz Wagner. In fact, when we did our bold predictions show a couple weeks ago on 48 Minutes with my co-hosts Ross Geiger and Michael Worldly Freer.
Shamelessly plug away, please.
Absolutely. Can you read that? Okay.
Please,
anyway,
yes.
So I said one of my bold predictions, we each did 5, was Franz Wagner is going to be an all-star this year.
Ooh,
okay. Because he's that good. I mean, look, he showed it in the Eurobasket tournament for Germany. Okay. He killed it for those guys. So look, who knows, in 3 years, maybe Jonathan Kuminga will be better. But so far, I mean, Franz Wagner's had a more productive career. Again, different teams, different situations. I get all that. But they would not have been upset if they had Franz Wagner either. I mean, I'm a big fan of his. He's better than his
Franz
brother.
Wagner, and again, the comp here, Franz Wagner in his career, these 4 seasons, they both got drafted in 2021. Kuminga was the 7th pick, Franz Wagner the 8th pick. And Franz Wagner averages 32.3 minutes per game. Jonathan Kuminga averages 22 minutes per game. So, and this is why I push back on critique of Kuminga in terms of production. And I'm not saying you are, because right off the bat, you said this is a guy that puts up 15 points per game, 3rd on the Warriors last year, side note, in very limited action. 22 minutes per game in his career. That's just not, that's why I push back when people say, well, he's gotten his chance. No, he hasn't. That's not enough run. Franz Wagner has played over 10 minutes a game more in his career. And I also, what sticks out to me about Franz Wagner is that 3-point percentage, 32.2. He's taken a little dip there. Do you think that shooting is going to come back for Franz?
Well, his first 2 years, he was in the mid-30s. The last couple of years, he's been like around 30, maybe even a bit below 30. But,
correct.
I mean, look, with that team, they have such a giant bunch of guys on that Orlando team between Paolo Banchero, Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr., big front line. They're going to be really good this year, by the way. I have them finishing 3rd in the East, if anyone cares.
Well, I care. I love that.
In Dubs Nation. Yeah. In Dubs Nation. But look, here's the thing. We were talking about this before. Because of the age on the Warriors, a guy like Kuminga may start out as a 6th man, but somebody gets hurt.
Yep.
He's right there. And they have to really take that into consideration because, look, the chance of, with Horford, Steph, Dre, Jimmy, there's the potential. I mean, not to mention injuries, but just no back-to-backs. I mean, Horford doesn't play back-to-backs, so he's not going to be playing back-to-back games. At least he wasn't in Boston the last couple of years. So Kuminga is more an insurance policy, as much of an insurance policy as anything else against the old dudes on that team.
Yep. And I read somewhere, I think today, that Steve Kerr, it was a quote from Steve Kerr where Kerr himself said he's committing to a bigger role for Kuminga. Like, in other words, what I'm trying to say here is if Kuminga signs that 3 or $75 million deal, I'm very optimistic about the Warriors' chances this year. I really am. By the way, look, I love all hoops, and that includes every team in the NBA. What was your take real fast before we move on from the Magic on the Desmond Bane trade? Did you like it? Or because the Magic are better for it, but they gave up a lot.
I liked it for both teams because the biggest weakness that Orlando had last year was their 3-point shooting. And Desmond Bane is, around a 40% life career, 3-point shooter. He's also a very good perimeter defender. Okay. So he's good. Memphis got a nice haul for him. Okay. Although they did have to take Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who was the worst free agent signing of like the last 5 years, as far as I'm concerned. He was god awful for Orlando last year. So, addition by subtraction, get him out of there. Maybe back in the Western Conference, he'll feel more at home. But I like Memphis. I mean, look, they kind of went down the tubes at the end of last season. They fired the coach. They got swept in the first round of the playoffs by OKC. It wasn't, but 4 number ones and for Desmond Bane, I think that's okay. They also lost Luke Kennard, though. So their 2 best 3-point shooters are now gone. So they're going to have to figure that out a little bit. But Memphis, the one thing I like about Memphis is that they have a kind of institutional culture. Everyone talks about Heat culture. Memphis has a very strong institutional culture. It's grind, grind you, grindhouse, just grind away. So Memphis to me will always be better than you think they're going to be.
And their front office is phenomenal. Like the Grizzlies, I mean, they were able to to trade Desmond Bane because you have Jalen Wells waiting, you have Scottie Pippen Jr. waiting, and that's just off the top of my head. Their front office routinely nails it with these late picks, especially. Yeah, they've got some bright minds in the front office there. Is there anything we missed with the Kuminga story? I feel like we covered it, but I don't know for certain.
Look, the window is closing in Golden State. It really is. Not saying it's closed. It is not closed, but it's closing. And Kuminga really can be one of your bridge guys to the future if you get him on board, happy, and give him the role. As far as the Warriors this year, I don't have as much confidence in them as you do. I could see them finishing as high as 4th. I could see them finishing in the play-in. I mean, I could see anything between 4 and 10 for them. More likely closer to 4 than 10. But I'm not really feeling like they're in the class of, say, OKC or Houston. I think they're kind of there with the Lakers and Minnesota. They're in that mix.
That's fair. Look, that's and you forgot maybe the best team, which is Denver. Denver scares the ever-living shit out of me.
Absolutely. No, you're right about that.
And OKC, you're right. I mean, they're the reigning champs, and no one's repeated since 2018. I'm very curious to see how they respond. They kept the whole group back together. The biggest variable, Bruce, when it comes to repeating as a champion that gets in the way, from my perspective at least, is hunger, right? You win a championship, and all of a sudden that drive that got you there, you really need something extra special within yourself to get you motivated to pursue another one of these, especially when all of a sudden everyone else has you targeted. And these are important things, like the hunger factor, the human variable, if you will. Do you think the Thunder are going to repeat this year? And if not, who in your mind?
I give them a very good chance, but I really love what Houston's done and what they are going to do. They finished 16 games back of OKC last year in the standings. OKC had 68 wins. They had 52. But the one thing that Houston was really lacking, they didn't have a crunch time scorer. Jalen Green could shoot you into a game. He could shoot you out of a game. Kevin Durant's not going to shoot you out of a game.
That's true.
He's going to be there. He's going to get buckets. He's going to go to the free throw line. He's a very good team defender. They're a rugged team. They have a 3-headed monster at center with Alpi Şengün, Clint Capella, and Steven Adams. Steven Adams is going to set picks for Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant's going to feel like I died and went to heaven. He's going to get so many open looks, if he just kind of, works it right. Ime Udoka is an excellent coach. I'm a Celtics fan myself, so I remember Ime from coaching Boston. I don't think they'll make up that 16-game gap between OKC and themselves. But if they play them in the playoffs, I could definitely see Houston making them, 7 games and winning that series. As for the East, I think, right now I'm looking at Cleveland and probably the Knicks, but I don't think either of those teams are as good as Houston and OKC.
The disparity between the East and West is, and this has been going on. Look, God damn. I mean, when I think about the East-West disparity, like I'm going back to the 90s, which, side note, Bruce, I don't know how when young people call the 1990s the 1900s. I'm starting to notice that's some crazy shit, man. Like I never
That's disrespectful, man.
I just never imagined that would happen. This would be a thing, yet I'm hearing it more and more. But look, the Eastern Conference, I know there's exceptions. I know LeBron with the Heat was, like there's anomalies here and there. But outside of Michael Jordan, I feel like the East has been and the Bulls, I feel like the East has been pathetic for like 30 plus years. What, in your opinion, what is the explanation for that? Like free agents move west. I feel like going again back to human nature. Humans just love to migrate west. I have no idea if that plays a part in this, but the West has just been the superior conference, I feel like, again, with little exceptions here and there, for 30 plus years. It might even be 40. What makes sense of that? Can you?
No, not really. I mean, look, you have some really extremely well-run organizations out there. Yeah. They don't rebuild, they reload. And look, the Warriors are, unbelievable franchise. I mean, I remember them when they were garbage. Okay, I remember when Raymond Ritter was trying to get us to put people on TV as opposed to us begging
Bruce,
Raymond,
repeating
please,
my
Raymond,
words.
please.
You're stealing my words. That's exactly, yeah. He would. Folks don't understand this. Like Ritter would literally reach out to us and be like, "Hey, we have extra seats. Are you interested?" Bet practice. It's insane. And now, like, it's the hottest ticket in town. It's been that way for 10 years. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No. So it's. Look, is there a better run organization than Oklahoma City? Because they signed a bunch of guys in the offseason. They gave SGA a big contract. They gave Holmgren a big contract. And, at some point, they're going to run into that deal that Boston ran into after they won it, where they gave guys rewards for winning, but then they're going to have to, make moves. They have so many draft picks, like, stockpiled. They've got like 19 first round draft picks over the next like 6 or 7 years. It's crazy. I saw one of your guys, one of your folks watching the show, mention, got to go all out and try and get Sam Presti to Golden State.
I saw that too,
well, no shit. Like 29 other teams would love to have Sam Presti as a general manager. He's a freaking genius. Okay. He's playing chess and these other guys are playing checkers. Okay. And that's the smallest of small market teams. So no, they've never used that as an excuse. They just make, one smart move after another.
Yeah.
So look, you've just had well-run teams. Bob Myers and the Lacob family, great job. The Lakers for a long time, very well run. The Spurs, oh my God. I mean, they don't get the credit they deserve as one of the all-time dynasties in NBA history. Because, people will talk about Boston, of course, talk about the Lakers, talk about the Bulls. The Spurs are arguably as successful as, they
never repeated, right? That's the one chink in their armor. They never got a repeat championship, but you're right. They 5 of them extended run.
They're going to be good this year too. You watch out. That was another one of my bold predictions. You want to hear a bold prediction?
I love them.
Most valuable player and defensive player of the year, Victor Wembanyama. Spurs are going to win 5-0 games this year. 50.
Oof. And they got Dylan Hart. My only concern with the Spurs, and I see people in the chat also brought that up, that we're sleeping on the Spurs. Well, I am apparently, because you just brought them up. But they are still very young. It's just one of those things where it's a matter of, are they going to reach their potential this year, next year? Like, when is that going to happen? Because when it does, oh boy, they're going to be dangerous. And going back to Houston, talking about the fact that they basically swapped Jalen Green with Durant. The only move they made this offseason I didn't like was essentially giving up on Cam Whitmore. I know they had to do that. Yeah. There just wasn't enough minutes to go around. I'm fascinated to see what Whitmore does with the real opportunity with the Wizards this upcoming season. But the Rockets have young talent that have still not reached their prime. Alperen Şengün, Amen Thompson. I mean, the guy Reed Shepherd, is that
Jabari
his name? The guy
Smith.
Who?
Jabari Smith,
who was playing the small forward position against the Warriors last season in the postseason with that 3-headed monster lineup. They're going to be dangerous. You're absolutely right. And I love Ime Udoka as their head coach. Unfortunate whatever happened in Boston that led to that divorce, but he knows how to get the best out of his players. I feel like Ime Udoka is one of those coaches where he's the alpha in the room, which is kind of crazy as a coach. Normally a player will take that mantle, but Ime's the dog, man. Like I feel like he just intimidates grown men who are bigger than him, and they don't want to mess with him. It's wild to me. I don't know. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, he comes off of that Greg Popovich coaching tree. Okay, he did time there,
Yes.
And look, Pop, Steve Kerr's part of that coaching tree. Okay. Mike Brown, the new Knicks coach, who actually is a good friend of mine. He's going to be on 48 minutes before the season begins. He's
a great dude, by the my too.
Oh, my God. Oh, well, he spent a lot of years there. And I mean, Mike and I worked together at ESPN for 1 year. And I just love the guy. He's such an incredible human being, And although I'm not a big fan of the New York Knicks, I kind of have to be now because of Mike.
No, Mike is, I'm forever going to emphasize his impact leaving the Warriors was far more substantial than people give credit for. He like behind the scenes, he's a workaholic. He's also a very good dude. He's personable. Players love him. People love him. I told JT the Brick, I was a guest on his program a month or so, and he's a huge Knicks fan. And I reassured him about the Mike Brown selection because a lot of Knicks fans are very wary of that pick, and I'm not. I think they got a great coach.
I mean, look, the difference between Mike Brown and Tom Thibodeau is they acquired a couple of guys, that are going to, reserves. Jordan Clarkson, I think, will be a nice pickup for them.
Huge,
okay?
yeah.
And Gershon Yabusele, who was with Philadelphia last year,
Yes.
the Frenchman. So the difference is, if the Knicks picked up those two guys and Thibs was still coaching, he'd still run out the same 6 or 7 guys. Mike is going to use 9, and that's going to mean that guys like Josh Hart are not going to run out of gas at the end of the year because he's running with a tongue hanging out of his mouth because he played so many minutes. And Mike will manage that roster very well. Again, I don't know that they're going to win 60 games. They'll easily be at least 55, I think. And that puts you in a championship level in the league. So Mike he's a fair guy. He can actually be a tough guy too. He can get in guys' faces too. I don't know that that's his preferred style, but I've heard him do it. I've heard stories about him doing it, and I think he's picking up. Usually when a team hires a new coach, it's because the team's kind of crappy. Okay, the Knicks are not crappy. The Knicks just needed a new voice. And Mike, to me, this is an ideal situation for Mike to come into. He's got mature guys on the team. Bridges, Brunson, Hart, even Karl Anthony Towns, a really solid core. And now you're adding some reserves there. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with that crew.
And the Knicks, to me, this is their season. Side note, by the way, 48 minutes, the podcast, you're one of 3 hosts on this show. You're covering the NBA. The highlight video on your YouTube page, because I looked you up yesterday. Yeah, you got Giannis Antetokounmpo on your show. How did you book that? And did he reveal anything interesting in that interview?
Well, first of all, the reason we got him is because one of my co-hosts, Ross Geiger, who is a former video coordinator for 3 NBA teams, the Knicks, the Suns, and the Milwaukee Bucks.
And keep talking about that.
He and Giannis are like super close friends, okay? So when Ross asked Giannis to come on the show, Giannis was reluctant, but he eventually did because he did it as a favor to Ross. Well, when Giannis came on the show, I asked Giannis this question. I said, Giannis, do you see yourself finishing your career as a Milwaukee Buck? And the answer he gave was, as long as I see the organization making moves to keep us competitive, I will be here. But when I see that not happening, then I have to look at things. That rocked the entire basketball world. The very next day, the clips from our show are on NBA Today. Ramona Shelburne and Shanae Agumekwe are like, giving me the heart emoji, like, hey, great job, Bruce. Well, I didn't get him on the show. Ross got him on the show. They were just giving me a little bit of love because we used to work together. But that triggered the trade where Damian Lillard came to Milwaukee. Drew Holiday went to Portland and then to Boston. And I have maintained that Drew Holiday was the missing piece that Boston needed, and that the Celtics really should have given the members of the 48 Minutes crew a playoff share, because if not for him coming on the show and us asking him that question, Drew Holiday wouldn't have been on Boston and they wouldn't have won the championship in 2024. That was our shining moment as a podcast. It's still, I keep it up on the front of my YouTube.
You should.
Because he's never done another podcast. He has not. We had Thanasis on, his brother, and Thanasis has his own podcast. Giannis didn't even do his podcast, but he did it for Ross Geiger, my colleague and co-host. So yes, and our third guy, Michael World B. Freer, was a statistical guru. He writes statistical notes for a lot of NBA announced teams. He's like the numbers guy, the analytics guy. So we have a little of everything. We have a former coach / coordinator. We have me, a TV person / fan, and we have World B, who's like, the numbers dude. So I would invite some of the folks who listen to you to check us out too, because I think you might enjoy us. And also, when you follow us on social media, if people ever want us to talk about something or address an issue, hit me up, hit Ross up. We're all out there. We post clips of our show all the time. And we love talking hoops, and we talk every team. We talk, we can talk, WNBA, you name it. We can talk everything. And that's why Giannis came on our show. All credit to Ross Geiger. Thank you, Ross, for being you.
Oh, that's a great grab and great story there. And you're talking like we're wrapping up. I know I said an hour, but I still got some juice left if you
Let's
do.
go,
I'm not ready
baby.
to-
We got time.
We got time.
time.
Good.
We got time.
And again, 48 minutes is the name of the channel. Side note, if you ever need me as a guest to talk Warriors, I'm available for you folks. My phone's open in that regard. One last thing about the Warriors before we shift gears and finish up the show, talking about the upcoming NBA season from a media perspective, meaning like how are we going to watch it? Who's broadcasting? Who's commentating? You touched on at the very beginning of the episode the 2027 season and how, if these reports are true, that the Joe Lacob in the front office, they want an option on Jonathan Kuminga's contract. Sorry, Andre FRBK. I saw you in the chat saying you're tired of all the Jonathan Kuminga talk. Unfortunately, man, this thing has held up the entire Warriors offseason, and it's the only thing to talk about. But the talking point here is 2027 as being an opportunity for the Warriors to maybe be heavy hitters in free agency, right? And Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be an unrestricted free agent. Nikola Jokic is going to be an unrestricted free agent. And supposedly the Warriors with Steph, with Jimmy Butler, with Draymond Green, their contracts expire that season. All indications are that's the marker for the Warriors dynasty shifting gears, no longer being a dynasty, and hopefully resurrecting it for another generation. But 2020, if the Warriors' plan is to just basically have all this cap space for 2027, I've got a little reality check for them, because the Warriors organization does not attract free agents. This is not a free agent destination. And I feel like there's some delusions of grandeur here. If Joe Lacob actually thinks that they're going to be recruiting these two megastars as one entity on your team, look, I just saw a report today that said the Clippers are also mapping out their salary cap to have room in 2027. Who knows who else has those two players in mind in 2027? Stephen Curry is going to be 40 years old. So it's not like he's going to be a selling point for these guys. Like, hey, come here and team up with Steph, and you can have this super team. Steph's going to be 40. He might be retired at that point. If it's not delusions of grandeur, I don't know what that is, to pretend that you'd rather sacrifice Jonathan Kuminga and his stability emotionally and otherwise on this team so that you could have freedom in 2027. Dude, get like dial up the reality check here a little bit, because this organization does not routinely land big free agents. I know Kevin Durant was a huge exception, but again, he joined a mega team that was already in place. Andre Iguodala joined a burgeoning mega team in place, and those are your exceptions. This franchise does not recruit free agents. For whatever reason, the San Francisco Bay Area is just not an ideal location for players to seek out. It just has never been. And I don't know if it's the sleepy nature of it. I don't know if it's just doesn't have that, the club scene, the nightlife scene. The Bay Area just does not pop the way LA does. I say New York, even though they've had their struggles with free agents, the way Miami does. So it's crazy to me to pretend that you need all this cap space for 2027. Never mind the fact, let's say you do sign Kuminga to this deal, you'd still have the cap space to sign those guys. It wouldn't matter anyways. I just think that's crazy. Any final thoughts from you before we talk NBA?
Well, look, when you're talking about Giannis, Giannis is 30 now. So in 2 years, he's going to be 32. That's probably the end of his peak. They say your peak years are like 28 to 32. So when you hit 32, 33, your best basketball is no longer in front of you. It's behind you. So I don't know that I would necessarily go there. Jokic being the exception. That guy, he'll play 15, 16, 17 years in this league, and he'll still be good, because you know why? He doesn't jump. He doesn't jump off the floor. He doesn't go up in the air and then land with all this like torque on his knees and his ankles and his lower leg. He's like the opposite of Zion Williamson, okay? Zion Williamson is a 280-pound monster who loves to play above the rim, and every time he goes up, guess what, Zion? Gravity's going to bring you down.
Yep.
And when it does, you see how frequently that guy gets injured. He needs to lose 40 pounds or else he's never going to really have a long career. But Jokic is not that guy. Jokic doesn't jump this far off the floor. He doesn't have to, because he's got unbelievable hands. So if I'm going to look at Giannis versus Jokic at a similar age, I would take Jokic, 100 times. and I love Giannis. Okay, I truly do.
I get it.
It's just that the style of play. Giannis is more explosive. Jokic is like this metronome on a piano. You can't speed him up. You can't slow him down. To me, he and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are different versions of the same style. You can't speed Shai Gilgeous-Alexander up. He's going to play at his pace, and he's going to do what he wants to do. He's going to get where he's got to get. Same with Jokic. Just steady back, Ding, ding.
That's what the greats do. Yep.
No defense can affect those guys. The only way they change pace is when they want to change pace. You cannot speed them up.
That's what the greats do. They control the pace of the game, and just like you said, they're gonna dictate the flow, not anyone else. And Steph's another one like that. Like I said, the Jokic is so special. That's a good point, man. Because John Morant's another player who just love to fly in space. But like you said, man, and there's studies that validate what you're bringing up, which is the landing and the impact that has on the knees. It adds up fast. And Jokic, look, as long as Jokic does not have a stronger desire to race horses and live in Eastern Europe, you're right. He could be dominating for many years to come. But for the Warriors to have this fantasy of 2027 and we're going to recruit all these free agents, take a step back, get a reality check, please, because you might have a superstar on your team now. Just give him that 3 year, $75 million, and let's move on. Let's see what the season looks like. A few people in the chat, by the way, bringing up, like G is saying, get Kuminga on the show. Steve Wilton saying, get Aaron Turner, his agent, on. I don't know if you would at this point. But another traveling Urquita saying, Kuminga, bring him on the show. It will happen. He needs to sign first. Let's let that be resolved. Kuminga will be on the show. I assure you that's going to happen. He's a friend. I'm already, if you folks knew how connected I was, I can't reveal too much, but Kuminga will be on the show in the near future. I give you my assurances on that. Shifting gears as we begin to wrap it up here, because the NBA went through some change this offseason, and that change is more specifically in reference to how people can watch the NBA this season. And I have this graphic here. Let me just set this up a little better visually. I got to zoom in. Give me 1 second. Here is my setting. And so TNT's out of the picture. I think that's one of the biggest things that sticks out here. Let me share my screen. I got this schedule just to give people some context. Hope this visual works for you people. On Sundays, the NBA will be on ABC and NBC and or Peacock. On Mondays, you're going to get and this is all nationally televised games, right? On Mondays, you're going to get Peacock. We'll carry an NBA game. So you're going to have the Peacock app. And side note, it is annoying when you have to switch apps, right? It's not like changing channels. If you have a Fire Stick, you know what I'm talking about. That damn thing moves slow sometimes. So it can be a pain in the ass. You also can't, during commercials, switch around and see what else is going on. So that's a little headache, but I digress. Tuesdays, NBC and or Peacock. Wednesdays, your former network, Bruce, ESPN, will resume coverage like they always have on Wednesday nights, at least in recent history. Thursday, Amazon Prime, and that's our girl Amina. She's behind a lot of this.
She is just crushing it out there. She is crushing it.
She is. And so Amazon Prime will have NBA coverage Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Friday and Saturday will also have ESPN. Friday will be ESPN covering the NBA like they have been for a long time. Saturday, I'm guessing it's going to be a Saturday night thing. I'm really excited about that. My point is, with all this, and if you can see it on your screen, hopefully this visual will suffice. On the podcast side, hopefully I articulated that clearly. Let's start here. Do you like this, Bruce? Because you've been covering sports for a damn long time at the leader. Is this a format that is conducive for success with the NBA? Your thoughts?
Well, I think a lot of people are happy that, NBC is back in the game. It's an over-the-air network. And, some of those games are going to be simulcast on Peacock. So they'll be on Peacock, but some of them will be on NBC. It's going to be confusing. It's going to take people a little while to kind of get into the rhythm of this thing. As for me, most of the games I watch are on, League Pass because, I just have to have that, And I have some issues with that. But here's the thing. I mean, earlier this week, Adam Silver was asked about this, and he said something that I was really sort of like weirdly amused by, where he said, well, NBA is a highlights league, and he was almost kind of poo-pooing the fact that so many of the games are going to be on streaming now and you have to buy the things. And I was thinking to myself, you are one of the smartest men I've ever known. And I know Adam, I worked with him for many years on the draft. Okay. I was really astonished that he said that. I'm like, why are you like, devaluing your product like that? Because to me, it's not a highlights league. I mean, it is, but it's not only a highlights league. And if you're relegating yourself to that, you're almost, telling the people who have now ponied up like what, $77 gazillion over the next 11 or 12 years.
Right.
Like, it's like, I don't know how I would feel if I were them. I guess it doesn't really matter. Deal's done, whatever. But yeah, it'll be a little bit confusing. But look, you just got to check the daily schedule. I mean, ESPN.com is pretty good like this. When you check the daily scoreboard, it usually says where the game's going to be on that night. I mean, and again, if you're a fan of a team, a lot of your games are going to be like, NBC Sports Bay Area. Most of your games are still going to be there. And that's like the core of any basketball fan is your regional network that's doing your games.
Yes, sir. And yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm much more fascinated by the whole inside the NBA moving to ESPN. This is something that I want to spend a little time with.
We're going to. I'm glad you brought. I'm gonna seg into that in just a second. I just want to add real quick: the regional sports networks you referenced, they are a huge reason why the NBA is not growing at a faster clip. These regional sports networks are struggling in a lot of instances to generate ad revenue to basically justify their existence. And what I'm reading on a lot of trade publications, folks who cover the business side of the NBA, is that these regional sports networks, the NBA reportedly is waiting for all these deals to expire. And then they're going to basically centralize these regional sports networks so that the NBA itself is managing it and not all these individual markets. And I think what that's going to do then is lessen the stranglehold that a lot of these small markets have on the NBA right now, because we're seeing this resistance to expansion largely because these small market teams don't want their a split of the revenue share, the pie, if you will, the metaphorical pie. They don't want that slice shrinking for them because they're not making the type of money with regional sports networks that the bigger markets are making. And even the bigger markets are struggling. Like, I can tell you this with certainty, NBC Sports Bay Area and NBC Sports California, which covers the Warriors and the Kings, and I think their contract goes through 2032. It's not like they're prosperous. It's not like they're killing it themselves. So like centralizing the regional sports networks, I think is going to fix a lot of issues. Do you have anything to add to that? Or do you think I'm wrong on anything on that? Your thoughts on just the regional sports networks being more of an issue than at least I thought it would be?
Well, I'm gonna take your word for a lot of that because you certainly sound like you're well versed in that. But the whole thing with the small markets worrying about splitting the pie up, I forget who told me this, but with the new contract, the new broadcast contracts, even the small market teams are making so much more money off of this. And if they do allow 2 expansion teams in, probably each expansion team is going to have to pay $5 billion each just to get in the door. Correct. So $10 billion divided by the other 30 teams, they're going to share that. The league office will obviously get their cut as well. But I don't think anybody has to worry about making money. I mean, there's the regional channels for those teams. I mean, some of the teams kind of own them or control them.
Right.
But there's going to be plenty of money with the expansion entry fees and just the money that's coming in through this contract. I think I read something like and again, I don't want to throw a number out there because a few months ago when I had this conversation with someone who knew it, I actually had the numbers, but it's literally, an NBA team doesn't have to sell a ticket, a beer, or a parking spot to make money.
Correct.
Because of the TV money. They're making a profit and paying all their bills just with the TV money. So now you're going to sell the tickets. That's pretty lucrative. Now you're going to sell beers and hot dogs and you're going to charge people to park. I mean, well, and this is where possibly lose money doing this.
And this is where, Bruce, the behavior of the uber wealthy comes into play. Like you mentioned that expansion fee and how much extra money these teams could make. And yeah, I'm sure they love that. But their focus is so much on the fact that, okay, great. We're going to get this big check for the expansion fee, but my 1/30th is now 1/32. And you just took a little sliver off my annual revenue. Like they care so much about that. It's borderline unhealthy. But greed is a whole prevailing thing. Let's not get into that. Or at least I shouldn't. But hopefully, again, I just want to see expansion. I want to see Seattle. Look, I'm wearing like a shirt my stepfather, rest in peace, gave me because he's from the area, and my family, a lot of family lived in Seattle, still does. I have roots there to a certain degree, and they are still hurting over what happened with their franchise being stolen and relocated to OKC. That was criminal, man. I feel for the people in Seattle who still don't have a team. And look, Vegas would be awesome too. I'm advocating for 4 expansion teams. The demand is there. The talent is there. You're seeing a lot of really good basketball players taking contracts to play overseas. Make it 4. If you care about the growth of the game, how is more markets going to hurt, right? Like, how is it going to hurt to add everyone in St. Louis? How would it hurt to add everyone in the Pittsburgh market or go international, Mexico City? How would that hurt getting millions of more people suddenly rooting for a specific team, thus the whole NBA? All that's going to do is make the league grow. But you have these handful of owners who look at that 1/30th and they don't want to see 1/32nd or 1/34th. It's disgusting, dude. The mentality of so many people just is revolting to me. But again, I digress. This is our schedule right here in terms of what people can expect for the coming season with a broadcast schedule. I love the fact that 7 days a week we're going to get national television. Now, Bruce, you brought up Inside the NBA, which to me is a treasured program. It should be in the the U.S. Library of Congress someday, recognized for its cultural impact. I think the growth of the NBA should, in a lot of ways, is because of that broadcast team and the quality that comes from their authentic, honest coverage that we don't get with a lot of other networks. Your former network, no offense, but I sometimes wonder about the agendas there and just how much of a filter constantly comes in mind with the broadcast talent. And you don't see a filter with Charles Barkley and with Ernie and Shaq. They're phenomenal. And so they got this new deal where they're still technically employed by TNT, but ESPN bought the rights. And Charles Barkley was interviewed a couple weeks ago, I think by Bill Simmons. Side note, Simmons, apologize to Rick Barry, bring him on your show. Bruce, I can explain the whole story to you another day if you want. But Charles Barkley mentioned that he doesn't know what's going to happen. They haven't been told when they're going to start. They haven't been told how the format's going to work after games, because with TNT, they did not have a clock. They were allowed to just organically let segments flow, something ESPN does not typically do. And he's telling me they don't even know if they're going to have that freedom now. It looks like a nightmare to me. What are your thoughts on this as someone who worked at the Leader for nearly 40 years?
I worked on the NBA, for, once we had the contract starting in 2002 for 15 years. They were always the management, not myself, because I had some differences with the way they did things.
I'm sure you did.
But they were chasing a ghost. They always were trying to figure out, how can we be better than TNT? So they would try and do different things. They'd put in different combinations of people. And I always just kind of shook my head and I thought, you know what? That is their thing. Our thing is not that thing. Okay. So what you're doing is, instead of allowing, your organic crew to get together and develop a chemistry and keep them together over a period of time and develop your own style, you're making, reactionary moves because, you're not as good as those guys. And there was talk about hiring Charles Barkley back in the day. And it was always like, there was a couple things. Number one, there was reluctance because people felt like, well, he's such an, unguided missile. I mean, we're owned by the Walt Disney Company. What's Charles going to say that's going to kind of go against the family values philosophy that Disney has? Okay. The other thing was, Charles knew what ESPN was like because he's good friends with Dan Patrick, and they used to talk about it. Charles never wanted any part of working for ESPN because he knew he was going to be asked to do a gazillion different shows. We used to call it the car wash, okay? Because we'd ask, and I used to oversee the NBA analysts, so I had to do their schedules in addition to doing the shows and everything. So I was the guy who had to say, can you do Sports Center at 9:00 in the morning? I know our show's on at 1 a.m. tonight, NBA Tonight, and I mean, there were some guys that would do every show. Jalen Rose was the best. You asked Jalen Rose to work 23 hours a day, he'd say, "What? You don't need me the whole day?" I mean, that's the kind of guy he was.
I love Jalen. Yeah,
Jalen is just an absolute magnificent human being in
agreed.
So many ways. We could do a whole show talking about Jay.
Agreed. I'm with you. Yep.
Anyway, so with Barkley wanted no part of that because he was like, "I'm gonna freaking do all these shows." So they offered him, from what I understand, significant amounts of money, and he just said no. So now they have licensed this show. And the producer of it, the legendary Tim Kiley, who came out of retirement last year, he actually used to work with us at ESPN.
Interesting.
Prior to that, yeah, Tim's a great guy, and he manages that crew like to perfection. So they got that crew now. If they dare try to change one little thing about what that show's doing, they will just destroy it because they just need to let it be.
Yes.
Leave it as it is. If they want to go a little bit long, you know what? Because here's the thing. ESPN was always conscious when a game ended. They wanted to try and get right to Sports Center. We got to get to Sports Center.
Why is that, by the way? I mean, do you mind if I ask why? Do you have any idea? Why is there such an importance, an emphasis on going right to Sports Center? Because I feel like after the game is when the really good stuff is discussed, right? You're recapping the action. Like, why is ESPN so focused on just jumping to Sports Center?
I never really quite understood it because I always felt like, they wanted, Sports Center was like their flagship show. That was their special thing. Only it's not so special anymore. I mean, it used to be, when Dan Patrick was doing the show, when Chris Berman was doing the show,
right.
Stuart Scott, those guys.
Yes.
It was special. Stan and Neil were like the last vestiges of that. Although Scott Van Pelt, I will say, is tremendous on Sports Center.
He's fantastic.
So when the game ends and they come to Van Pelt and Legler in the studio, that's the best transition Sports Center ever took off of NBA. So now, what are they going to do with this inside the NBA? Well, what they really should do is leave it. Okay. Now, don't try and pigeonhole it into Van Pelt's show and have Van Pelt interview these guys because that's overkill. Yep. Ernie's got that covered. Ernie can deal with that stuff. If they want to, have Van Pelt on ESPN2 and say, hey, if you want to watch Sports Center, Van Pelt's going to be over on ESPN2. Legler's going to be on with them. You can do that. Some people might go. Most people won't go. Okay. They're going to want to watch this. Let it be. Don't try and mess. Don't try and fix what isn't broken. Okay. It's just too good. It's too good. And
Agreed.
If you're going to go to the trouble of licensing this thing with this great arrangement, you've got those guys. You've got Kylie running the show. It's like, just, if you're going to change something, don't do it right away. Let it play out. See what's going to happen. Your ratings aren't that great anyway on Sports Center because nobody knows who's even the anchors a lot of times anymore. And again, I don't mean to bash ESPN. I love ESPN. I truly do. I still love ESPN. Every blessing in my life is a result of ESPN. I will never, ever root for them to not do well. But in this particular case, just leave it be.
Yeah, I hope that's what happens. I hope the fact that we don't know and we're this close to the NBA season is pretty crazy. The fact that Barkley's coming out publicly saying no one's even talked to him about what the format's going to look like. They just all say, as the kids like to say, it's a little sussy. It's a little suspicious. And Bruce, my final question for you, sir, and thank you so much.
Can I say one more thing about ESPN's
Please,
coverage?
of course. Yes.
Tim Legler is the best NBA analyst there is. I've worked with Tim Legler. I've known him for 20 years. I worked with him when he was a rookie. I'm good friends with him.
Former Warrior. Yes.
I talked to him a lot. It was so long overdue for them to put him on the A team. Okay. He belonged there 10 years ago. I'm so glad. Mike McQuaid, who oversees all that production stuff now, Mike has always been a fan of Legs. Last year, he kind of inherited that when Dave Roberts moved into another role. So you had, Breeny, who's unbelievable. Okay. You had Doris, you have RJ. Now, I would have done it a little bit differently than they did. I would have left Doris on there and added Legs and taken Richard Jefferson off because I think Richard Jefferson is great on studio shows. To me, he is so much better on a studio show. So give him a main studio gig, have it be Breeny, Doris, and Legs. I think that would have been their best combo. but Mike McQuaid knows what the heck he's doing, and I'm not going to, question him. But that's just one man's opinion. I think
No,
legs,
it's a good
legs,
again.
legs makes you a smarter fan. Doug Collins was like that too. When I watched a game that Doug Collins was doing, I came away thinking, man, I just got a little bit smarter. Same with Legs. He's amazing. I love the guy, and America, the more they hear him, the more they'll love him too.
I love Tim Legler as well. Rick Barry, who's a regular guest on this show, and he's a very hard man to please. He loves Legs similarly. Like he sings Tim Legler's praises, and I agree with you as well. I think his analysis is spot on. What is the last question I have? And this is and I don't know if you even agree with the sentiment. I feel like though ESPN, when it comes to hiring ex-players, their focus seems to be more on role players in terms of who they bring in and not stars, right? Like NBA, like inside the NBA, for example. I know Kenny Smith is not a star, so I feel like Kenny Smith would fit more the ESPN role. But Barkley, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest ever. Shaq, just one of the greatest ever. Period. And ESPN, I feel like they try to find role players and turn them into stars. Like Kendrick Perkins comes to mind. Tim Legler comes to mind. Richard Jefferson. All these individuals, Jay Williams, who still gets a lot of airtime. These were not star players. These were guys who were mostly on the bench. But ESPN tries to turn them into stars. Why is that?
It's funny. The best managers and the best coaches are frequently not the star players. They're the guys who sit on the bench next to the coach and listen to the coach talk during the game. And I think in some ways, some of the guys I worked with over the years, guys like, Bruce Bowen, and Avery Johnson, I had several Spurs, that I work with over the years. Sean Elliott was one of my first analysts. Those guys, I think, they're not the biggest names, but a lot of times they have more insight because the star players were out there doing their thing. Okay, the role players and the secondary guys were kind of watching from a little distance, talking to the coaches. Hey, he should have done this. He didn't do this. This would work better. So I think, just like, great managers a lot of times were utility infielders, or just, not
Catchers.
superstar players. Yeah, exactly. So, the role player guys. And again, it's not like they didn't try to sign some of those guys. They did. They signed Scotty.
That's what I was
Pippen. He
wondering
worked
too.
there for
Yeah.
a little while, but Scotty wasn't so good on TV. Nice
Magic
guy.
was, and I don't know if he just decides to come on and off. I feel like Isaiah Thomas is a weird one. Great player. I don't know if he rubs people the wrong way sometimes. Maybe he does. But is it money? Is money a huge reason as well, though, in terms of the stars?
I suppose. But you know what? You'd be surprised at what some of these guys that you wouldn't necessarily think were getting big time money. Some of them got paid pretty well, so and I was so lucky over the years to work with some amazing people. Flip Saunders was really, God rest his soul. He was wonderful, guy. And I give the ESPN credit. They brought in a lot of different people. PJ, still does radio. We had a lot of fun working on TV together. I know he's a legend in the Bay Area. Maybe not for all the right reasons, but Well,
just Bruce. Every Friday, and we just started this segment. It's every Friday. We call it the Friday Happy Hour. My co-host Armando Laura on that show, the professor, he has a column, and you may or may not find this amusing. It's called "Sprewell Was Right." I'll leave it there.
PJ Carlissimo is in this book that I'm trying to get published about my 50 years in this business. I describe PJ as the older brother we all wish we had, because PJ Carlissimo, when you be doing a shoot with PJ or whatever, he knows every maitre d' at every restaurant in North America, Canada, United States, you name it. If you're working with PJ and you're getting off the air one night at midnight and the restaurant's closed, around 8:00, he called the guy at the restaurant. He said, hey, my guys are working late tonight. Can you keep the kitchen open for us? We're going to come over after the game. There's going to be 8 of us. And he batted 1,000. He did. He just did. He's the big brother we all wish we had. A wonderful, wonderful man. Sprewell was wrong. Tell your guys Sprewell was wrong. PJ was right. Sprewell was wrong.
He sometimes shows up in the chat. He's not here today, but message will definitely be delivered to Armando. I'm sure he'll get a kick out of that. And Bruce, I can't thank you enough. People can follow you on all social media platforms. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but the handle I believe is the same. It's at Pure Hoops Bruce.
Yeah,
hard to actually. That doesn't roll off the tongue easy, but it looks great. Pure Hoops Bruce. I guess you have to get used to that.
Well, my old company was Pure Hoops Media, so
there you go.
The company's defunct, so I made myself Pure Hoops Bruce, but I kind of go.
It's a good handle. That's a good handle. The first time I said it, I was like Pure Hoops Bruce, but when you look at it, it looks clean. It looks very clean.
Can I just let you know about a little something that we're working on right now?
Of course, yes.
We're doing a series of 2-a-days, okay, where we're doing 15 consecutive shows between now and October 10th. We're releasing 3 shows a week where we're taking 2 teams in each show, one from the East, one from the West. They're short shows. They're like 15, 20 minutes long, where we're kind of
sizing up. The Warriors one, Bruce, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but is the Warriors one 9 minutes long? Sorry, go ahead.
I saw what you did.
Bad joke. Go ahead.
No, that one actually dropped a couple days ago. So if anyone wants to go online and see what we had to say about it, some of the things we talked about were discussed today. So, maybe not. The newest one is Charlotte and Houston that dropped this morning. Tomorrow we're going to drop Chicago and the Clippers. And then probably Friday we'll drop Cleveland and the Lakers. So between now and October 10th, 3 shows a week, short, 48 minutes in our BLEAV family. I think you guys will like it. It at least gives you a little quickie primer on some of the teams maybe you don't follow. So it gives you some, nice bullet points. So you can be a water cooler legend when you're at work and people want to talk to NBA. You could be like,
you could be informed about your team. I did not get a chance real quickly to, we went an hour 20 plus, and I did not give any love to our sponsors. It's my bad. We were just rolling, but I want to give some love real fast to FanDuel before we go. And I bring them up specifically because our local WNBA team, the Valkyries, they play at home tomorrow. They host the Minnesota Lynx. It's a must win for the Valks. If they lose, the season is over. If they win, it's a winner take all. Game 3 back in Minnesota, and you could bet on that game with FanDuel. The line has moved toward in the Valkyries' favor a little bit. Currently, you could bet on the Valkyries plus 10, the OU on that, 151.5. That game's going to be played Wednesday in San Jose at SAP Center. So stay tuned for that. And tonight we're back. It's a Tuesday doubleheader. Every Tuesday night we do the I-80 crossover. Mark Haynes will join us. There is a Sacramento Kings variable to this pertaining to Jonathan Kuminga that we're going to cover because the Kings really want him. It's a shame that they haven't made a serious offer. I know Tim McMahon in that club was like, dude, I'd do it for Malik Monk in a first. No, you wouldn't if you had half a brain. First of all, look, the Malik Monk part of it isn't bad, but that first rounder was protected. Make that first rounder unprotected if you want to be serious. Nonetheless, we'll do that tonight, and people can follow you again on social media at Pure Hoops Bruce. 48 minutes is the name of your program. How often are you releasing episodes? Is it bi-weekly, weekly, daily?
Well, no, we've actually, since we started doing the show in December of 2022, we've never missed a week. Some weeks we do 2 shows, some weeks we do 1. This initiative with the 2-a-days, we wanted to get all 30 teams in.
Yeah.
And the only way to really do it was to do 2 of them at a time and do multiple shorter shows. So we're all there. We've done 178 episodes, whatever, but who's counting, right? And we're going to keep on doing it. We do it. We never miss a week during the off season. We just keep on going. We've had some good guests. We have some guests that are upcoming that, we're going to, I've got some verbal commitments from Tim Legler is going to be coming on the show at some point.
That's a good one. Yeah. That's a
Mike
really good
Brown told me he'd come on the show before the season began, and the guy who's going to be coming up very, very soon, we're trying to work out a date, is the one and only Adrian Wojnarowski, the great Woj.
Ooh, yeah.
I did a thing at the Basketball Hall of Fame last month with him where I was kind of emceeing a kids event, and I interviewed Woj, and we had such a great time. He said, yeah, because he's now out of the NBA business. He's now working for St. Bonaventure University.
Correct.
But I mean, I just want to hear some of his stories because Woj, I mean, he is like beyond a legend. I mean, a legend doesn't even begin to describe this guy. So I don't know when it's going to be, so I can't tell you the date, but I promise you when there's any news about it, I will let you guys know. I'll put it out there for the world to see. And we welcome all new listeners and viewers. My YouTube channel, Bruce Bernstein on YouTube. All of the video elements are on there. We do video version of the show for there. So if you think I'm, good looking and you want to see my face, which you don't, but not as good looking as Cy, but he's just, he's got
I'm
the
a
DNA. I
heterosexual
know.
male, so I will not comment on your look, sir. But if someone told me you're good looking, I believe it. So I'll leave it at that.
Hey, so I have a favor. I have a favor to ask of you.
Of course. Shoot.
Do you think I would love to post the show that we just did on the 48 minutes?
Happily.
48 minutes. Can you send me like the MP3 and the MP4
Done.
so I can put it up there? Because I'd
Done.
love to have our regular audience get a chance to experience you.
Hell yeah. Of course.
I think it's good for the whole family, right?
I'll email you both documents as soon as they're available, which is right after the show. And I want to mention as well, if you Google just 48 minutes, you are the second link. So that's pretty impressive. So people can find you literally just by Googling 48 minutes. Is there an easier way to find your program than
we're
simply...
on every platform,
There you go.
Everyone who does, if you do 48 minutes BLEAV.
That's
right
there. Yeah, there you go. We share the same network.
But
this was a pleasure. Thank you, man. It was really nice to meet you.
Same here. I'd love to do this again sometime. Maybe after we get into the season a little bit.
Absolutely.
With some of our predictions came true or not. But
yeah, absolutely.
And I would love to hit you up to maybe join us sometime if you could fit us into your schedule.
I will happily do that for you, sir. And again, Amina, the fact that she endorsed you, sir, that immediately was all I needed to know. Okay, this is a good guy. Let's roll. And I'm glad that we have that mutual connection as well. Amina Hussein, you are a gem, miss. Hope you're doing well with Amazon. I imagine she is. She's probably killing it over there.
She's my queen. She's my queen.
Exactly.
My queen. She's your
very
queen
well
too.
Very well said. We're back tonight. And Bruce, thank you again.
Right,
Chef's kiss. And subscribe to 48 Minutes. And join us again tonight. We'll be back with Mark Haynes. Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye, Bruce.